Test, test 1, 2. Should be live. We're going to be go ahead and test our stream health before we begin. All right. My channel. Go ahead and test the stream quality. Stream quality. Sounds good. All right. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is just an update concerning today's severe weather discussion here. This is our Storm Prediction Center highlighted outlook. This does include parts of northeast Colorado, southeast Nebraska, southwest Nebraska, southeast Wyoming, parts of east Colorado, the panhandles, and much of western Kansas and Oklahoma. We do have a moderate risk, so this is quite a rare issuance from the Storm Prediction Center, but we're talking about extremely high winds and very large hail in this 45% hatched area. The good news is here, the Storm Prediction Center hasn't really highlighted much of a tornado outlook, but still a possibility with this outlook here. So again, this is looking to be an extremely dangerous situation here. So we're going to go ahead and do a live discussion here regarding this area. Again, here's that risk area once again. We also do have an impending severe thunderstorm watch in that area along the eastern seaboard. So here's what we're watching right now. It's this activity that will continue to organize ahead of this low pressure system here. And let's go to an earlier thing here. So activity will continue to organize into a line of storms in a highly unstable environment, looking at Cape values close to 4,000 and quite a gradients here on the map. So also we do see some shear here. So white, green, yellow. So surface winds will be out of this direction. So and then I'm definitely going to be seeing some hail with these storms as we, in addition to heavy rain. And then 2 Zulu, this will be around 9 p.m. this evening. Even though the sunlight's gone, we still have quite a lot of instability here. And definitely looking at hail with these storms as temperatures and dew points will be pretty high, even past 20 degrees below 0 Celsius. So that's why the Storm Prediction Center has placed this particular area in a 45% hatched area for very large hail. We could see baseball-sized hail potentially. So think about a baseball falling on your head at 100 miles an hour. This could potentially be fatal for those outdoors. So this is going to be an extremely dangerous situation. Also, looking at this shear, it's going to be really problematic, especially we can see the surface winds around and below 500 millibars. We could see we're all over the place here. So the change in wind directions, according to how high you are in the atmosphere, really going to be an issue. And low level speed shear, not looking to be too much of an issue, but it could still turn out to be a problem. So very high winds and a few tornadoes could be possible with this setup as we go, let's say from as early as 5 p.m. over eastern Colorado, and we still have shear, speed shear being depicted at this early in the setup. So we could be talking about before 5 p.m. as this activity organizes. So 21 Zulu, that would be 4 p.m. ish over eastern Colorado as these storms develop, and then we're talking about a a fairly organized line of storms moving across western Kansas that have the potential to produce extremely high winds that can cause widespread damage to power poles and trees, and weak structures could be destroyed or damaged, and mobile homes could be damaged or destroyed in this in these kind of winds. And addition to that, we could see hail damage to roofs. We could see injury to people and animals outside, and shattered windows can even be a possibility with some of the larger hail and the stronger storms. So this is why we need to be so again, we're looking at very large hail, very high winds. We could see significant damage to roofs, mobile homes, trees, and power lines, in addition to shattered windows. So most likely, this area will be going under a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch, depending on the wording that the Storm Prediction Center will be using. It's not immediately likely we'll see anything particularly dangerous, but we'll just have to keep that area. We'll continue to have to monitor that area because we have much of the ingredients here in store that we could see very high winds again, very large hail, and still a chance for a couple of tornadoes embedded within this line. So depending on if anything spins together, not too much spin will be available until you get like up here. This is where we have our 5% hatched area from the Storm Prediction Center. Okay. All right. Again, we have some spin, but not really that much, especially in the more significant areas over here. So some embedded tornadoes still possibility. And also, I do want to show you, we have this area over here over the Northeast United States, right around New York City, most of East Pennsylvania, much of New Jersey, parts of Maryland, Delaware, into Vermont, New Hampshire, into Maryland, and Connecticut, and in addition to a lot of New York. These areas are currently being monitored for a watch. In fact, let's see where that is. We should have a active mesoscale discussion for that area. Okay, here we go. Watch likely. Let's see what the Storm Prediction Center has to say about that. All right, hoping things will load here. Okay, so again, severe wind and hail appear to clear here in this slight risk area. And let's see what the Storm Prediction Center has to say about that. So we can see that there's all right, quite a bit of instability in that area. First of all, I'm going to see what the Storm Prediction Center is. Okay, no tornado risk in that area. That's what I was saying. Again, some chance for high winds and large hail. So it's this area right here, except this will be before the risk happens over here. So we're watching this activity in this area low pressure here over the next few hours, and these storms will continue to organize as this low spins, and it will draw in a lot of moisture and convection into this area. And let's see what instability parameters we have. Really high here, around 3,600 at tops, maybe even higher. Let's see what the soundings have to say about that. Yeah, we're already at 4,000 here. So again, depending on how much gradients we have here. And let's go back to our depicted reflectivity here. And here's our line of storms that are forecast to develop. Yeah, this will be fairly organized. There's not going to be much spin. So the tornado threat with this particular area appears to be quite low, but still a small threat would not surprise me, especially with any storm that develops here. And looking at this particular sounding, definitely looking at that chance for hail here, especially once you see this temperature and dew point relationship. Not going to be like baseball sized or anything like that, but still that chance is there for up to 2-inch hail. Because you see that the temperature and dew point aren't as close together in this particular sounding from here to 0 degrees Celsius in this temperature selection, but still, shear looks to be an issue here, where we could see 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts, and downdraft looks to be a issue as well. So definitely looking at this sounding in the downdraft cape, where I can conclude that we could see hail right around tennis ball size or less, but anything that tennis ball size would be fairly isolated in nature. Also, again, before we cut the stream, it's this area that we are continuing to watch. It's this low right now, centered over Nevada, and things will continue to organize. Okay, now there's our low that we're watching around 21 Zulu, this area. So around 4 p.m., we're looking at storms developing in this particular area. And as we got remnant instability over here from after the sun sets, we're looking at things to organize into a line of storms, especially once you see over western Kansas and eastern Colorado, where some significant severe weather, including hail up to baseball size and wind gusts in excess of isolated areas, could see 80 mile an hour wind gusts as outflow as these storms continue to move eastward. And again, looking at so depending on how much inflow we could see isolated, maybe a couple of tornadoes with this setup. So again, I do want to show you guys this sounding again. Okay, now this right here is showing a little bit of spin, so that's why we see a 5% hatched area for tornadoes. And here in this particular sounding, especially around the Kansas-Colorado border, we do see very high speed shear and really high shear here. So look at that. And the temperature and dew point are really close together, even far past 20 degrees Celsius below 0 degrees Celsius. And that's really going to be an issue here, especially once we look at that sounding and once the cap breaks with that activity. So we could see baseball, maybe even softball sized hail, depending on how high up the temperature and dew point, or how high the clouds and downdraft will be with this activity in particular. And we do have that a severe weather alert is issued, so a severe thunderstorm or tornado warning. This is a time you want to be away from mobile home, outside vehicles. You want to find a strong building and take cover, and stay away from windows and exterior walls, because when we're seeing wind gusts in excess of 80 miles an hour and baseball size hail, we could see a lot of weak siding damage. And depending on your siding, we could see significant damage to some structures. So if you're in a weaker structure, it might be a good idea, even if it's not a tornado warning, just to move to a storm shelter, just to protect yourself for in the event your siding gets damaged and you could see significant window damage. This would particularly, most weaker structures would be susceptible to damage with this kind of activity. If you're in a stronger building, especially a permanent home, that would be safe. And on the lowest level would be safest. So in a basement, if you have one, and in an interior area, as far away from the windows as possible, that would be the ideal for severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings. And if there is a tornado threat, it is also recommended that you put along a emergency supply kit for some, like candy bars, for instance, or crackers. Make sure it's not Ritz crackers, because we just had a recall on those. Also some water And make sure you have a flashlight with you because we could see a lot of power outages by the way the winds um, are forecast to go. We could see potentially 60 to 80 mile an hour wind gusts. And again, we do have that potential for hail up to baseball size. And we do have that chance for a couple of tornadoes with this setup over here. As I saw the soundings earlier, we had some shear, but it's not as defined. But the shear looks to be a problem, and very high speed shear. So we do have that chance for not only a couple of tornadoes, but extreme straight line winds, potentially 80 mile an hour gusts in some areas, but widespread damaging winds, 60 to locally 80 mile an hour, definitely a possibility according to the Storm Prediction Center. These areas over here are already being monitored for a watch, and these areas could see a watch issued later this evening as we see initial storm development right around, this would be 4 or 5 p.m. ish, as we can see here. So again, it's also important to remember the difference between a watch and a warning. A watch means that the severe weather setup is defined to where we could see a lot of severe weather in that area over the next couple of hours, and people need to be prepared to take action should a warning be issued. A warning means that severe weather is occurring in that particular area, and that is time to take cover in a strong building and away from windows in the center part of either the main level or the lower level. If your main floor is the top floor of your home, it might be a good idea to take shelter in a basement, because especially if there's trees or power lines around your home, they could be blown down. And 80 mile an hour winds, we could see large trees being blown down. And if that falls on your house, that's definitely going to be trouble for those, especially if you're on the higher floors of your home. We could see windows shatter, and we have seen recent severe weather deaths in the Northeast due to trees falling on cars. So this is why you need to be in a strong building to avoid the odds of potential injury in severe thunderstorms. And also, we do have that potential for a couple of tornadoes, particularly over this setup area. So we go into the Kansas-Colorado border as these line of storms continue to move through. Things will look to diminish in intensity as we go towards the morning. Some reminiscent instability, but once we go into central Oklahoma, nothing's going to be severe or anything, as we can see this late in the setup around 9 Zulu, so 3 or 4 a.m.-ish. We could still see some gusty winds as these storms continue to weaken, but as we go this far into the night, we're looking at a drop in instability around less than 2,000, and we don't see much gradients here. So again, there is some potential in these areas in particular where we could see severe weather later in the nighttime hours. So this will be extremely dangerous because tornado sirens are not designed to wake you up. This is why you need to be able to be woken up by a source of weather warnings should severe weather approach your area. I would say a NOAA weather radio would be the most reliable source of those audible alert warnings, because specifically with the newer technology from Midland, we could see everyone in the house being woken up and alerted, and then that should be your cue to move to a safe shelter. Again, once again, before we cut the stream off, we're looking at initial storm development around anywhere between 3 and 5 p.m. over parts of central Colorado. And as we approach eastern Colorado around 7, 8 p.m.-ish, this is when we're looking at an organized line of storms that have that potential, especially in the higher reflectivity depiction areas. We could see hail potentially around baseball size That potential does exist, as we shown you in the soundings earlier. And wind gust, widespread damaging wind gusts, 60 to 80 miles an hour. So again, it's this particular area of concern, this black shaded area and this purple shaded area, where we do have that highest potential for extremely high winds, very large hail. Again, a potential, especially over southeast Wyoming, western Nebraska, west Kansas, and eastern Colorado, where we do have this significant hatch area from the Storm Prediction Center. Once again, we do have a moderate risk for severe weather, including the Garden City, Kansas, and Dodge City, Kansas area, as well as areas of northeast Colorado and southwest Nebraska. In addition to those threats, we do have that chance for a couple of tornadoes in the risk areas. We get more isolated once we get into this green shaded area. That highest potential for tornadoes is in the brown shaded area. So again, remember to take shelter immediately in a strong building should warnings be issued. Mobile homes, vehicles, outbuildings, anywhere outside and not in a strong building will not be your guaranteed safe place in severe thunderstorms or tornado situations. So just thought I'd go live for a priority update for the USA Severe Weather Network and our Illinois Stormwatch coverage. And this concludes our event, and we will be back for streams later in the day. We appreciate everyone joining us, and have a good day.